Leon Trotsky, the dynamic Bolshevist, who was Lenin's right-hand man during the Soviet Revolution, visits Pompeii on his first holiday since he fell from power in 1927. For the last 4 years, this ardent revolutionary has been exiled in Turkey. Trotsky will shortly return to Turkey to complete the history of the Bolshevist revolution, which he is now writing.
Revolutions take place according to certain laws. This does not mean that the masses in action are aware of the laws of revolution, but it does mean that changes in mass consciousness are not accidental. It is this that makes prophecy possible.
I will brought you from Berlin. I will be your eyes. But you must carry me through this wilderness.
The critical relationship in the case of Fräulein B is a father, a famous political figure, and his daughter, a refugee here in Berlin. The father is writing a history of major world events in which he played a leading role, but he writes of himself in the third person in an attempt to reduce the subjective element. The daughter is so detached from her own personal history that she is swamped by chaotic associations which shield her from her origins. I have spent 20 years investigating personal traumas through the patient's own histories. Now my work is teaching me that in the unconscious, history or time may not exist at all.
What to do? believe my father has written to you? I'm gonna talk about myself. There is nothing to tell about me. I'm just the shadow of a famous parent. Do you know who my father is? Yes, it's easy to locate him. But I have no boundary. I cannot be described. I've done nothing worthwhile. I'm the good-for-nothing daughter of the most important man of our time. I wish I could be rid of myself. There are things about me he doesn't know at all. Things he wouldn't dare to know. What did he say in his letter?
What do you expect him to have told me about you?
Well, I suppose he told you that my mother encouraged him to desert us and escape from Siberia when I was a child. He led the revolution of 1905, and he was the real leader of the 1917 revolution. Lenin wanted him as his successor.
But what do you expect him to have told me about you?
I'm unexploited. And probably unexploitable. He thinks I'm a liability. I hate my past. I can't stand the past. I have no earthly memories. Nothing. I feel stupid. I'm wasting your time. I can't remember anything. I feel pressure from you to describe my past. You and he, always analyzing the past. But there is no past for me, and perhaps for all of us, there's no future.
In this room, you have no history. You must try to just talk as things appear in your mind. You don't have to take responsibility here for any historical position.
When I talk into this silence, I don't know where my words are coming from. When I talk into this silence, I don't know where my words are coming from.
We must stop now. Goodbye. I'll see you at 3 tomorrow. To reach my patient, I have to search behind her idealized historical accounts. Fräulein B had been separated from her father since early childhood. Before becoming my patient, however, she had shared 9 months of exile with him on Prinkipo. Their reunion was not as happy as it might have been. He was preoccupied with the setting up of a new political base, and she was forced to re-experience abandonment.
The dialectic of history, which often turns things into their opposites, has worked such a change within the communist parties of the world. These parties once practiced the most democratic system ever known, demonstrating the belief that internal criticism and debate should always take place on the most vigorous level. But now, through the bureaucracy of the Moscow party and the influence it wields over the other parties, a new orthodoxy has emerged. A rigidity alien to the original character of communist beliefs. The expulsion of opposition, to some degree epitomized by my own banishment, is an expression of fear and rigor mortis. 2 major facts are determining the fate of Europe and of Germany in particular. Firstly, the financial collapse of the American market, which is throwing millions out of work in Europe. And secondly, the expulsion of opposition in the USSR, which makes other socialist voices impotent and clumsy when faced with crisis in their own countries. That these 2 phenomena should occur simultaneously is more than a quirk of coincidence. It is history itself giving us a warning of what is to happen and leaving us precious little time to prepare.
I dreamt I was standing beside a naked man whose head was wrapped in bandages. He had been injured in a street battle with the fascists. I'm struck dumb with pity. I take his hand and make him feel my hair and face. Who are you? He asks. I move his hand slowly down to my blouse and cover my breasts, which swell at his touch. Who are you? He asks. I use my tongue on every part of his body until he can no longer contain his excitement. "Why are you?" he shouts. "I want you." But he's powerless to do anything. While my mouth was distracting him, I tied up his hands and feet. Then he speaks. "Zina, the left opposition needs you." I lied. It wasn't a dream. It was a daytime fantasy, complete with political justification.
Why do you think the man is blind? Why bandaged?
Because he had been in a riot. I said so.
I think we ought to unwrap this bandaged head.
No, there's no one I want to see.
This victim in your fantasy is exercising considerable power over you.
You know that Prinkipo and the other islands have a special local name?
What is it?
The Red Islands.
How fitting.
Now, I'm the first Red exile to be lodged here.
There were other exiles before you?
The Byzantine emperors used to send their rival princes here, after first blinding them. But Stalin hasn't blinded me. I see everything that's going on.
So my father isn't blind, if that's what you were thinking. He sees everything.
Do you believe that?
He knows more about what's happening here than you Germans do. And he gets it from me, not my brother. Leo lives in a world of pamphlets and publications. He's Trotsky's mouthpiece. I'm Trotsky's real informant. I'm his eyes and ears.
Especially his eyes.
I'm like Antigone, daughter of Oedipus.
Antigone?
When Oedipus was blind and in exile, Antigone led him through the wilderness.
Walter, what are you doing?
You know that island out there?
I... Oh, yes.
You know what it's called? Antigone, the island of Antigone.
Uh-huh.
Named after the play, Sophocles, Antigone. See?
Are you reading it?
Oh, I'm not reading it, I'm just holding it. It's a romantic gesture.
I know it's a Turkish island today, but in classical times, this was part of the Greek world. You know what Antigone said? We have only a short time to please the living. We have all eternity to love the dead.
Walter told me that the poet Shelley had drowned with a volume of Sophocles' plays in his pocket. Earlier than anyone else, and without realizing it, my American friend saw that I was drowning.
get the feeling that her unconscious fears are being passed over to me. As if the mythology of the past is taking a claim on the future.
Sir, I can guarantee you $20,000 for your biography of Lenin. Now, we'd run it in the form of a serialization, and we'd be especially interested in your conjecture about Stalin having something to do with the death of Lenin. We would also like to print your reply to Churchill's attack, calling you the ogre of Europe.
Who are you, Papa, who strikes such fear into the Stalins and the Churchills alike? What are you in touch with that normal mortals are afraid to approach? Who is this Papa of mine who works so rigorously with his histories, but who finds so little time to write to his daughter?
We must stop now. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
And Zina, 3 tomorrow. On memory distillation. My patient's recollections have developed a poetic quality to which I give the term comic nightmares. She speaks them as if to confirm, so all this really does exist. But the quality of her words betrays the thought, what I see here is not real.
Just think. This morning, this creature was alive and swimming. Now it's dead and cooked. But tomorrow, after a trip through our innards, it will be flowing out to the sea again.
Zina. Try not to think about it. It'll spoil your digestion.
How does the assassin feel about the matter? The ogre looks very pleased with himself.
As you devour this prehistoric monster, chew on the notion that man's attempt to control the environment in which he lives relies on the slaughter of nature. How dare Churchill call me the ogre of Europe? I am the ogre of the whole world.
Is it true that you've eaten artists as well, Olga?
The only artists I've eaten are socialist realists. And then because I'm a very compassionate man, only those parts that have stopped working, the brains.
How did they taste, Lev Davidovich?
They were not very filling.
Next time, try the arse. That's why those idiots have their brains.
Wherever they have them. That's how Churchill would like us to be seen. Eating brains in a rich blood sauce.
It's Mussolini.
Churchill.
Oh.
You should know. You're a man of the times.
It must be American. Doesn't sound like Turkish.
Red, hot stuff.
Jazz.
What?
Jazz.
You see, Andre's breadth of culture is so much greater than mine. Leads me into the mysteries of the modern age. Beat of the proletarian heart or a beat of factory machines. An intertwining of body and labor, combining to produce the most energetic of musics, in keeping with the new energy of the industrial age.
We agree with every word, great leader. Now, let us dance.
I was only explaining that I understood the music.
Would I have been called a mad woman in the ancient world? They built a temple for me. The temple of Zina, Prinkipo. No, not a temple. He wants to be a prophet, not a god. I have images. Mostly silent.
Images of what?
Zina and her demons must be dealt with. She's frightening the people with her visions. How dare she tell them that the everyday reality of their world will become as insubstantial as her nightmares? We have no choice but to seal her in a dark cave forever.
I've just heard some extraordinary news. Stalin's wife has killed herself.
Why?
As a protest against enforced collectivization. It was killing peasants in their thousands, and she couldn't stand the shame.
God. Will it change anything? Maybe your father will be called back.
Possibly. Look, don't tell Zina anything about it when she gets on. She'll get into a state and start shouting it round.
Russia was so late in accomplishing a bourgeois revolution that she found herself compelled to turn it into a proletarian revolution. Or in other words, Russia was so far behind other countries that she felt herself compelled not merely to catch up with them, but actually to outstrip them. But then history is full of paradoxes. Capitalist England, having been so far in advance of other countries, is inevitably falling behind them. The cynics think that the dialectic is an idle play of the mind, but it is actually a description of the process of evolution, which lives and moves by way of contradictions.
How would you describe the great experiment?
Posthumous. You've heard they've begun arresting many painters and writers. These are the ones who escaped the net so far.
You are an economist. How can you explain the situation in relation to what's happening?
So you're talking to that
Things
traitor.
seem to be getting uncontrollably
Left us for Stalin.
too.
You must realize many have had second thoughts. He has passed on useful information to us.
A more devastating effect than in any other country.
I see what you've done.
And your father's banishment.
Why am I always excluded?
This signified the
Why
end
can't
of
information be
intellectual
passed on
descent
to
of the
me?
party in Germany,
Zina, it's not a question of exclusion.
as well as in the Soviet Union, allowing them to re-mortisons.
Are these the paintings you saw in Moscow?
The party is becoming increasingly impotent in its fight with the fascists, the more it suppresses the contradictions within its own structure. Stalin actually offered his resignation. What? But no one had the nerve to accept it.
They'll never get another chance like that. They know what they're in for.
There's something self-destructive about the people around Stalin. Whilst they try to preserve their positions, they're passing decrees which make them the ever more likely victim. They recently brought back capital punishment. And there's talk about executing political opponents.
Zina?
Because they agreed that they would never resort to the patterns of the French Revolution.
We're gonna go home now.
Was he allowed to hold his lecture in Denmark?
He's back on Prinkipo.
Your father still has friends in the Central Committee. There could still be a recall.
Please, leave us to talk.
Why don't you talk directly to Trotsky?
Who's this?
It's my sister.
He's here, in Berlin.
What?
He's here, in Berlin.
Where?
Speaking to you at this very minute.
Zina, I'll come home with you. Come on.
I'm sorry. So am I. Look, I'm not going back. It's impossible for me now, but I must speak to you later. I've got some documents, Central Committee, about the collectivization disaster. Many people know that had your father taken power, the changes would have been carried out by a surgeon with skill and sensitivity. But now they've set a butcher to work. It's impossible for me to describe how the repression has come about. Like a disease, everybody knows, but no one acknowledges. It's seeping imperceptibly into all areas of human activity.
Socialist realism is as bankrupt as the Stalinist seed that produced it. Socialist for them means they can do anything to capture an audience. And realism for them means the most ridiculous and grandiose distortions of their own roles. Art must find its own roads, independent of ideology. The methods of Marxism are not its methods. Artists must not only use their conscious minds, they must build a bridge into the unconscious wishes. And the first responsibility of an artist is to speak the truth as he sees it. That truth can be tested later, but it must be spoken. All of us, however great, must live out the nexus of time, past, present, future. We must all face our mortality, and we need help to do so. Politics can help reconstruct the world and make it more receptive to our ideals, to our needs. But never forget, the world and everything in it is a natural phenomenon, and that's where the poets take over.
System approaching. Some of its voices call out to me before they arrive. Zina, stay still. Zina, don't eat. Zina, don't wash. I can guess when my sickness is about to rear its disgusting head. I feel all the symptoms long before they arrive. And yet, when they do arrive, I greet them like a long-lost friend. since I've been in Berlin, my madness has taken on a new light. The most frightening thing for me is not my delusion. It's the speechless vacuum between my voices of reason and my voices of madness. I live trapped in that vacuum. And it is too terrifying for words.
You are swimming in a sea of words. Many of them borrowed. The real Zina is covered by them.
Why didn't you send the cuttings to Prinkipo?
I'm not guilty, you are.
No one's guilty. What are you talking about?
Well, it's the usual thing. She's always believed she's his only child.
You always say that you're working for him. But I know how selfish you are. You are here in Berlin because of each other.
So, you've had these cuttings for 3 weeks.
Send them now. What's all this guilt?
You and Yoba are a scandal. Just like Papa and me. Natalia told me that I couldn't enjoy them because they were all inside her and I was not one of her children. But that I could watch them through a crack in her body.
Sometimes when I spoke to a large crowd, it was as if I were a somnambulist, standing outside of myself and watching my speech take shape, as if at that moment my own unconscious were at one with the collective unconscious of the crowd.
Where is my father?
On Prinkipo?
You're lying.
What?
I was at the Emery Library checking on newspapers. And I overheard 2 white Russians. One of them said, Trotsky's on the move again. He's in Copenhagen.
He was there for a short visit to give a lecture. But now he is back on Prinkipo.
And why didn't he come here?
You know, the German government still won't give him a visa, nor will the French anymore. They had to travel back by boat as far as Italy. They made a brief stop.
Italy. I stopped in Venice on my way here.
As a matter of fact, he visited Pompeii.
What?
Pompeii.
Doesn't he see the significance of his actions? Doesn't he know what ghosts lie buried there? It's here in Berlin.
He's not here.
It's here. It's breaking up into pieces. His voice. His face. His arms. I can see his hands. Can't you see him?
Your breathing is easy. Your mind is clear. Now think of a landscape. Do you see the landscape? Let's call up a gentle breeze. Do you feel the breeze?
Yes.
And when I take my hands away, you will describe the landscape before me.
Comrades, let me tell you about the true extent of your power. Let me tell you about the fact that forms that power. Facts are an invincible force. Facts speak with an eloquence far beyond the reach of mere words. You, the messengers, caught the eye, the ear, and the word. You have built a fire whose flames dance in the nightmares of every futile tyrant. In the hope will breathe all your best men and women in this world. You, the revolutionary masses, are no longer a theory. You are a fact. Comrades, you have one last battle before you. It is your duty to defend that freedom and to destroy those who would take it from you.
I can't see anything else. It's here again. If I listen to the rain maker. You never did trust her. That's how you destroyed her. You should have trusted me. I'm a political animal. Not like her. She's an animal of instinct. Now she's here in this squalor, lost in her nightmares, and praying that the rain will wash them away.
Her visions under hypnosis, her compulsion to repeat earlier painful sensations. I see these as the battle between the life instinct and the death instinct.
When particular areas of the ego have been drained, perspectives become distorted. The past can change places with the future, and the present can become lost.
Zina's hallucinations are getting worse.
Zina may be a disturbed woman in many ways, but she's one of the few who can see what is going to happen. She knows that Germany is disintegrating faster than people realize. The Germany that we know is vanishing into an abyss. She's right to want me in Berlin.
The father has begun to send me the letters which she has written to him. He has such a strong belief in the scientific, in objective fact, that he leaves no room for privacy. Contrary to his conscious intent, I've begun to view this as his way of entering the analytic space. I get the strange feeling she has incorporated splinters of her father's personality, and that at times it is these which are speaking in the sessions. My dearest, beloved little crocodile, though I know how strongly, how prodigiously, how terribly busy you are writing your accursed history, certainly you are working on it even at night, yet I ask you to step down to my illness. Listen to me once in 30 years with attention and patience till I finish.
My dearest, beloved little crocodile, though I know how strongly, how prodigiously, how terribly busy you are, writing your accursed history, certainly you are working on it even at night, yet I ask you to step down to my illness. Listen to me once in 30 years with attention and patience till I finish. I warn you, I've become very talkative. I know someone somewhere has complained to you about me, but let me tell you, I am not guilty. For several weeks now, the doctor tells me I'm having hallucinations, but everything in my madness could take place. I am a sick person, and besides, I would not betray you however much you fear it.
I am not guilty. I'm a sick person. But anyway, I would never betray you, however much you fear it. Anyway, what I want to say is, I haven't seen anybody for a week, and there's nobody to get advice from. You're my father. And I obviously occupy a place of misunderstanding in your life. But you're also a leader. And it is terrible, but flattering to discuss matters with a leader. Therefore, I ask you Because you're the only one who understands such things. Fascists will take power. What are we going to do? Where can we escape to? Why the devil are you in such a situation and we're not you don't come to Germany?
Therefore I ask you, because you and I are the only ones who understand such things. When will the fascists take power? What are we going to do? Where can we possibly escape? And why the devil are we in such a situation and yet you don't come to Germany? Please explain all this to me, I beg you, Papa, on my knees. I cannot suffer any longer. My soul is aching. I want clarity, clarity, clarity. And I am longing for you. I cannot tell you how much. I kiss you with all the passion of my soul. Zina.
When will the fascists take power? What are we going to do? Where can we possibly escape? And why the devil are we in such a situation, and yet you don't come to Germany? Please explain all this to me. I beg you, Papa, on my knees. I cannot suffer any longer. My soul is aching. I want clarity. Clarity, clarity. And I am longing for you. I cannot tell you how much. I kiss you with all the passion of my soul. Zina.
National Socialism is the politics of despair. With Nazism, the shadow of the Dark Ages is returning to Europe. Hitler, if victorious, would not only preserve capitalism, he would reduce it to barbarism, to the materialism of the 20th century. He opposes only the myths of the 10th or the 11th century, the mystique of race and blood. In its frantic rejection of the economic view of history, National Socialism descends from economic materialism to zoological materialism. One of the decisive moments of history is now approaching. Workers, there are hundreds of thousands of you, there are millions of you. If fascism comes to power, it will ride like a terrific tank over your skulls and spines. Make haste, German workers. There is very little time to lose.
feel I have to warn you about something. I had a nightmare. You were there, surrounded by crumbling walls. You were speaking, but the sound of the walls made your voice inaudible to anybody else. I woke with a start. They were shouting in the courtyard. When I looked out of the window, I saw rows of brown shirts just stepping round and around the courtyard. I found myself starting to tremble, sweat. And yet it took me several minutes before I could pull myself away from the spectacle. So, is it going to be a glorious new year for the Nazis? How long will you continue with the illusion that there is dignity in silence? My father always vanished when I needed to talk to him. You do the same when you refuse to speak. Did he tell you to behave like that when you saw him? I feel so alone.
I'm here. I've never met your father.
I feel like a baby. With tiny hands. Oh, God, everything going black.
Oedipus, the father of Antigone, blinded himself. Rationally, you accept the demands the world makes upon Trotsky. And yet you feel your father has blinded himself to your need for him.
Ever since I came to you, I haven't had any early memories. But something keeps coming into my mind. Long ago, when we were in Siberia, during my father's first exile, the Tsarist police checked the house every night. One time I woke up and heard my mother explaining to the policeman that my father was sleeping. I crept out of the bed to find him. And what I found was not a man, but a dummy in the shape of my father. He'd already left for the West to carry on the work of the revolution. I have the feeling that my hand went through the outer shell of the dummy and found nothing but dust. I screamed. It was as if my whole world had disintegrated.
Pour quand les lettres doivent être prêtes?
Il faudrait qu'elles partent demain matin avec le bateau.
Il y a des lettres pour Paris et Berlin?
Ouais, il y en a aussi pour New York.
honey, you're exhausted. Let's then guard tonight.
That's very kind, but it isn't necessary.
I won't fall asleep.
I'm sure, but...
Give me the gun.
I don't mind staying up again.
Why should you be trusted?
You're the one who's sick. Here.
Can't let you have a gun.
Your father doesn't wish it.
My what? How dare you tell me I have a father? Don't stare at me. Come here. Now get hold of yourself. Get hold of my what? Myself? But I'm selfless. Zina, please, lower your voice. He's resting, and you know how badly he sleeps. Who's he? Do you think there's someone up there? Look! There's no one up there.
I hate him. He's a vain, cruel man. I love him. There's no interpretation, no political action that can bring a dead person back to life. What is there that can cure a lifetime of silence?
I feel very afraid for Fraulein B. What I had called her hallucinations are now taking objective shape on the streets. She tells me she will be leaving Berlin. And yet I know she has no visa for any other country. At the end of her last session, I embraced her. Not as the daughter of a great man, but as a poor little Jewish girl, so courageous in her search for her own truth. So pitiable when seen beside the forces ranged against her.
who says that instinct is blind. Instinct has terribly keen eyes which see in the dark and can overcome time and space. Instinct is the memory of generations and begins where life itself starts. What is most frightening is that it hits without mercy those who are in its way. From out there on the streets, I feel that something like this is approaching me. Papa, your belief in political reason blinds you to the darker side of ourselves. But let me tell you, beware of instinct. For when these furies are touched, no power on earth can stop them.
You must try to sleep.
I find it hard to sleep. Zina.
She really frightens me when she acts like that.
She frightens us all.
Forgive me everything. We are both at the mercy of things beyond our control. You are my one guide in this wilderness, as you are the light for generations to come. I selfishly embrace you. I kiss you, Zina.
Doktor, a kocsi mindjárt itt lesz. Doktor, a kocsi mindjárt jön.
The laws of history have nothing in common with simple cause and effect. Unevenness is the most general law of the historic process. The historic process is a natural process full of contradictions, ebbs and flows. It is built on tremendous reservoirs of energy. And when the conditions fuse, it sends all who stand in its way into the ashes of time. The masses learn to handle the fire of revolution by burning their hands and jumping away. Revolutions take place according to certain laws. This does not mean that the masses in action are aware of the laws of revolution, but it does mean that changes in mass consciousness are not accidental. It is this that makes prophecy possible.
If we get separated, I want you to pass these tapes on.
Pass it to who?
To people. People in the future. Before you go, I want you to memorize something for me. In the 9 years since Zina's suicide,
In the 9 years since Zina's suicide,
Trotsky's prophecy has come about.
Trotsky's prophecy has come about.
We don't know what we take in on an unconscious level,
We don't know what we take in on an unconscious level,
what we internalize,
what we internalize,
and how these things can reemerge.
and how these things can reemerge.
I'd forgotten Zina's dream till a few moments ago. This hospital was built by political prisoners. In spite of all the dead dogs that found them, Trotsky's name emerges again.